Thank you once again for joining our class today. Yeah, so we are looking at the Great Trek. What is the Great Trek? We are looking at the Rosary people and their Mali religion, Mari religion, predating the Christian era or the introduction of Christianity into Zimbabwe or into Africa. We are saying that the Africans, we are saying that Zimbabweans, we are saying that people of Southern Africa, they knew God, who was called Muali or Mali, pre the coming of Christianity. So that's the essence of the presentation, the essence of the article. But before that, before we delve deeper into the deeper, chambers of the ocean of knowledge, I need to take this opportunity to uplift the Galilean chief rabbi, Jesus Christ, the revolutionist of all the time, who divided the world into AD and BCE. He changed the world by laying down his life, not by taking the lives of others. So that's one important characteristic trait which Jesus had. So, but as a storyteller, this is going to be a little bit longer because it's history. We need people to know. No, Varung didn't bring God to Africa. God was already there. So that's the history about the Great Trek, the Rosary people coming from Israel into Yemen, into Sena, into Ophir, called Sophia, Sofala, Mozambique, then in Zimbabwe. But before that, I have a story that I read of an atheist, who was a British philosopher, logician, mathematician, historian, and was a social critic and a political activist, who was asked what he would say to God as a disclaimer of why he didn't worship and why he didn't believe in God, when upon his death he finds that God truly existed and truly exists. So this is what he said. He responded by saying that he would tell God, if he would be asked why he didn't believe in God, he said he would tell God that he did not give him enough evidence. That's what he said. It's not going to matter, there's not evidence enough. That's why I didn't believe in you. But in the response to him, Dr. Ravi Zacharias, an eminent Christian philosopher, quipped that for men, the main problem is not the absence of evidence or the absence of knowledge. Instead, it is the suppression of it because they belittle the scholar. They are fundamentalist, affected by fundamentalism or by gullibilism. They believe in what they know, so they don't accept any other ulterior new knowledge. So one may choose to disbelieve the evidence, but they cannot suppress the scholar because it's not one scholar, it's a body of knowledge. So while it's still on that, do you think it's okay if you see the Satan wearing a black suit, just because you hate the Satan, you don't like the Satan, then you see him wearing a black suit, then you say to the people, the Satan is wearing a red suit, just because you don't like the Satan? No, it doesn't work like that. Facts will remain facts now and forevermore. So as a scholar, like we do this every day, I just wanted to put a disclaimer that, to show academic humility, that I don't use my knowledge in this presentation, and I'm just a novice in this field. I've written so many articles, but I'm a novice, and my clear objective in this presentation is not to try and reinvent the wheel about the Rosary people. You have knowledge, but I just want to tell a brief history, a history of God. We in business we call it globalization. To globalize, to bring things that are afar and bring them closer to you. That's globalization. So we in this article will be presenting how we perceived our own ontological perspective of God. Maritime, to no one say it's from an African, Zimbabwean, Southern region perspective. So, but with a brief history, but some people forgot. No, it's not like that. So So the methodology that I used to gather facts here is called the literature review. Literature review, you review so many articles, so many books, then after that you bring facts to the book, then you present. So the findings, after findings meaning what I got from all those books and articles, after that thorough comparison and review of articles, I found that yes, the 12 tribes of the Bukalanga, the Kalanga people, the Bukalanga people, the Ukalanga people of Great Zimbabwe can be traced back to Yemen. Yemen is a country closer to Ethiopia, closer to Israel, to Yemen. Then Israel, the Northern Kingdom, connecting squarely to the 12 tribes of the Bukalanga. The people in Zimbabwe, they can be divided into 12. They are we have only 2 groups of people in the world. We have totems, the Jewish people and the Zimbabwean people. Jewish people and the Zimbabwean people. So, and the Zimbabwean people have 12 tribes called the 12 tribes of the Bukalanga, Bukaranga, and the Jewish people have also 12 tribes of the Jewish nation. So, like I've said in my presentation, in my introduction, this presentation, I said this is a literature review. It's not me. So don't look at me and say, no, this is a literature review. So, but according to the Bible, we understand that the kingdom of Israel, or the Northern Kingdom, was one of the successor states of the old united monarchy, also called the Kingdom of Israel, which came into existence into about 930 BCE, after the northern tribes of Israel rejected Shlomo Amalek. Shlomo Amalek's son, called Rehoboam, is their king. So 9 tribes landed the Northern Kingdom, the tribes of Reuben, Issachar, Zebulun, or Dani, you may name it, Naphtali, Gadi, and Asher. Ephraim and Manasseh, Ephraim and Manasseh were those 2 sons of Joseph, Asadik the righteous, who were ordained by Jacob. So, but in addition to the members, we have the tribe of Levi, descendants of the Bantu. The tribe of Levi, just as a way of introduction, are the descendants of the Bantu. So I want you to know. So the tribes of Levi, these are the descendants of the Bantu of Southern Africa, the Ashanti of Ghana, and the Morons of Jamaica. We had no land allocation. We found in the Northern Kingdom. You understand? So the tribes of Judah and Benjamin or Benyamini remained loyal to Rehoboam, the son of Shlomo Amalek, and formed the kingdom of Yehuda or Judah or Yaoundé, the capital city of Cameroon. So, but members of Levi and the remnant of Shimon or Simeon were also found in Southern Kingdom, 2 Kings 16 verse 9. So now, we're now looking at the history or the origins of the Mali religion. Mari. Where did this come from? So with a fine analysis on the likely origins of the Mali religion in the work of the most prominent researcher called Gaire of Gaire, in his book written in 2012. It's about the origin of the Zimbabwean civilization. So because this is a research, there is truism in this suggestion about, this is him, there's truism. This is Gaire of Gaire. So he said there's truism in his suggestion about the possible origins of the Mali religion from Yemen, from Israel, from Ethiopia. Like other writers referred in this book, Gaire of Gaire finds a connection between Mwalism and the religions of the ancient Near East, and indeed suggests that the name God used, the name Muali or Mali, that is being used by the Kalanga people, the Nambia and the Venda and the Bakaranga, may actually have its sources in Israel. You see, you understand? So, no, further light is thrown on the religion of Zimbabwe, not only by the clearly Jewish traits in the religion of the Lemba and the Venda peoples, but also in the name used by the Bantu Kalanga of Rhodesia, because this is a research. No. So we need to learn something. So the Bakalanga are descendants of the people whom Monomotapa ruled when the Arabs were still controlling the African East Coast at the time of the Portuguese in so-called Zimbabwe. So this was an all-powerful and omniscient God. Mwali was an all-powerful and omniscient God, which the Roju people believed. They were 12 tribes of the Bakalanga. And according to research, that Mwali resembled Jehovah, UDK Vavke of Israel. Among those who have been sufficiently perceptive to this relationship, so the word Jehovah was found in these Africans or southern people of Africa to resemble Jehovah in Israel. So that's what we have, and there are some symbols that we can find, we can see within the southern people of Africa and those, the Semitic people of Israel. We can say that the occurrence of a Mu'ali, that is a God, with all these other traits of the falcon god, of a megalithic and phallic religion. It's called a phallic religion because they have a scepter, a rod, chimbo, like a phallus, like an ever-sharp pen. So it resembles Judaic traits of worshiping God. Chimbo, the phallic religion. It's called Mali or phallic religion. And the circumcision and the moon deities is consistent of the corpus of religion coming from Saba. Saba is Ethiopia. From the Queen of Sheba, that's Saba. This you can get it from the book called From Timbuktu, from Babylon to Timbuktu. So we just here to bring to the world of those who seek knowledge, and so that we understand. So this article, this presentation, like I've said, is a great track tracing the history of the Rosh God, predating the supremacist regime. I also need to acknowledge that there were so many experts who have already written about the Rosh people. For example, the guide of Gaire that I was talking about, and Dr. Mazarire of the University of Zimbabwe, with Professor Wim van Biesbeck of Erasmus University of Rotterdam. We have Portuguese Diogo Dil Cavaco in the year 1506. He wrote about the Rosh people, the Bukalanga people of Southern Africa. We have also a German explorer, Hel Kalmuch, who reached Great Zimbabwe on the 5th of September 1871. I'm telling you this so that you understand that it's not one person, it's not me. I've gathered evidence from all these academic ancestors or juggernauts in the field of anthropology. So that's what we have. But for the purpose of this study, like I've said, as a novice researcher, I'm definitely going to substantiate what I'm explaining here with I'll use Professor Tudor Patif, who studied Hebrew and Arabic languages at the University of Oxford. So he's going to buttress me, he's going to support me in this research. And then he said in 1968 he was awarded the Good Fellowship at the University of Hebrew in Jerusalem. He was awarded that. So Professor Tudor Patif, over his career as a professor and chief academic, and at the university, he has included the research of the Sephardic Mizrahi communities of the Muslim, the Jewish people, all over the world. So I'm going, like I've said, I'm going to be using him, it's a research to try and then bring sanity to this history. So according to Dr. Gerald Mazarire of the University of Zimbabwe, who is also again in the Department of History at the University of Zimbabwe, supported the anthropologist Van Beesbergen, 1994, who was at Erasmus University, about the Bakalanga of South Africa. And he listed 12 tribes of the Bukalanga in Zimbabwe. So I'll mention them here, the 12 tribes of the Bukalanga. Why I'm mentioning all these, because we are trying to do a great track to track the history of Mwalism in Zimbabwe, which I said it predates the coming of the Europeans with the Bible. Dambuzo Marikara said that the white men brought the Bible and we had the land. Now we have the Bible, they have the land. So, but didn't we know God before? We knew God. So these are the 12 tribes of the Bukalanga that I'm talking about. We have the Bakalanga, we have the Banambia, we have the Balobetu, we have the Balebetu, we have the Balozi or Loi, some of them are in Zambia. We have the Balemba, we have the Bavenda, we have the Waswapong, we have the Batwamambo, we have the Batembe, we have the Babirwa, and the Bashangwe. These are the 12 tribes of the Bukalanga people, like the 12 tribes of Israel. So the name Valobetu or Valozwi means Varozwi. Valobetu, Valozwi means the recipients of tributes and sacred scientists who can make rain and control forces of nature. This is a research. So the Varozwi are an offshoot of the Makalakala, people of the Nafta, now Kordofan in Sudan, the heartland of ancient Ethiopia. The Varozwi migrated to the Limpopo Valley, where they established the Wokaka Empire with its seat at Mapungubwe a long time ago. So it is well established that the Kalanga, already called by the name, was the state language of the Changamiri Dombo, Lembewu state, which in the late 17th century succeeded the Torwa state. And through archaeological evidence that was done at Kami ruins, the evidence is supported. So, as a matter of fact, nothing is mentioned in Zimbabwean history books or textbooks and the constitutions of both Zimbabwe and Botswana about the Kalanga, the Bukalanga, and the Ukalanga. It leaves one wondering who and from where the Kalanga people came from. How is it possible that so little, can you imagine, is known of a people with such influence and whose ancestors are thought to have built Great Zimbabwe according to UNESCO heritage? So, according to Dr. Tudor Patif, a British historian and writer and broadcaster, traveler and adventurer, I still remember during my research that he was an emeritus professor of modern Jewish studies at School of Oriental African Studies. He dealt very much, he researched very much on the Kalanga, the Bukalanga, and the Ukalanga, that they can be traced back to the Semitic, period. They have a strain of blood from Judaism. These Bukalanga people, Wakaranga, the Bukalanga people, the Rozwi people, the 12 tribes, are known to have been great miners and traders in gold since the earliest centuries of the Christian era. Before the Christian era, they involved in extensive agriculture and manufactured iron and copper implements. So they were the builders of the greatest city-states of Mapungubwe and Great Zimbabwe and the Kami, the Bukalanga, the 12 tribes of the Bukalanga, Bakaranga, but being led by the Varozwi. So they indeed were people responsible for the establishment of great civilization in Zimbabwe. So what are we saying? The Kalanga had distinct forms of government and religion among the peoples of Southern and Central Africa, which were unknown anywhere in the world. So their governments, the Monobotapa, the Togba, the Lozi kingdoms spanned a combined period of 1,000 years. 1,000 years ago, not 1880 or 29 September or 9 whatever, when the British put their flag in Harare. No, it's not that. The Rosary, the Mali religion predates that. So the Rosary people's religion, called the Mali religion, had unique and distinctive features among us all religious groups in the sub-Saharan Africa. But they were connected. They some traits that were linked to the Jewish, Judaic way of worship in Israel. So let's now look at the origins and the language of the Bokalanga, Makalaka in Southern Africa. It has been determined by means of anthropology, archaeology, that the peoples of the Bokalaka, Bakaranga, or the Kalanga were already settled in Africa, south of the Zambezi, by year 900 AD. So, Dara AD. But the actual date of this settlement may indeed have been earlier, according to a 6th century documented by Cosmas in Dr. Pelas. I want to use people who have done this research before, Alexandria, who said there was gold that was taken from Southeast Africa by soldiers that were sent by Shlomo Amelech before AD 900. So let's look briefly at Great Zimbabwe and Kami. So the earliest written reference that we have concerning Great Zimbabwe is from a letter that was written on the 20th of November 1506 by a Portuguese officer called Diogo de Alcavaco. So the Portuguese officer was writing a letter to his king in Portugal. So he said he was writing because he had visited Zimbabwe then. We're talking about 1506. On 20 November 1506. Research says he wrote to say that the seafaring Portuguese were the first Europeans. This guy was coming from Portugal, so he wrote to his king to say the seafaring Portuguese were the first Europeans to touch Southern Africa and to make written records about the region. So in that letter that was written by Diogo de Alcavaco, he was describing the conditions in the interior of Southern Africa. So he said that to his boss, listen, this is what I like most. Remember, I'm saying the Rosary religion, the Rosary or Mwalism, predates Christian era. So to prove to the world that people must not say, no, Arungu brought nothing. God was there. That's why this presentation is here today, to just clear the dust or clear the mist. So Okawako wrote to his king in Portugal. He said, the kingdom said, he was writing, this is a letter to Portugal king. He said, the kingdom, meaning to say the southern kingdom, at Great Zimbabwe, the Great Zimbabwe kingdom, that he was referring to that kingdom. He said, the kingdom said, in which there is the gold that comes to Sofala. Sofala is called Ukalanga or Bokalanga. This letter was written in 1506. And the kingdom is very large, in which there are many large towns, besides many other villages. So he was telling the king that the kingdom that he had found at Great Zimbabwe was like that. So he said in his letter, this kingdom resembles Sofala or Ophir. Ophir is a place that is found in 1 Kings in the Bible, the Old Testament, the Torah, 1 Kings 9 verse 28. There's a place there that is in the Bible called Ophir. Ophir refers to Zimbabwe. So Ophir is Zimbabwe. So this guy was writing, Okawak was writing to his king, said the place is called Ophir. And they came to Ophir. That's what he wrote in that letter. And fetched from Ophir gold 420 talents and brought it to King Solomon. So he was writing in 1506, he was writing to his king to say, there were people who were taking gold from this place called Ophir and sending it to King Solomon in Israel. So this is what he discovered. And he said, that's what he said, and he said, a man might go from so far to a city which is called Zimumbani. Zimumbani, Zimbabwe, Zimumbani, Z-U-M-U-B-A-N-Y. Zimbabwe today, which is large, in which the king always resides in 10 or 12 days if you travel as you're coming from Portugal. So that's what he wrote in that letter. He said gold there is not, you don't dig for gold, you can extract it from the earth's surface. So that was his letter to the king. And after then, German explorer Kalmuch, I'm referring to scholars so that you don't say, people know people. So Kalmuch was the first European again to see the ruins and brought them to the attention of the world. He reached Great Zimbabwe on the 5th of September 1871 and was the first European to give a detailed eyewitness describing the edifice. So he also said the European gold hunters at the end of the 19th century, through archaeological evidence of Great Zimbabwe, unearthed glass beads and fragments of porcelain and pottery that resembled those that were discovered in Israel. You see, so there's some evidence. Now, having said that, let's now look at the pre-Christian worldview of the Bukalanga, the Mali religion. We are now looking at the pre-Christian worldview. So, what about it? Any study of the Bukalanga, when I'm saying the Bukalanga, I'm talking about the Bakaranga, and there are 12 tribes, like the 12 tribes of Israel. Any study of the Bukalanga that does not include their pre-Christian religious worldview would be very incomplete. Any study that does not include that the Bukalanga predates Christian worldview is incomplete. For this is one of those unique features that show the Kalanga to be a truly distinctive and exceptional people among the people of the world. Now, but one of the most baffling questions we have is about the Kalanga religion. The Mali religion, it is its similarity to the Hebrew religion. Yahwehism. Yahweh is Hebrew. Even people like Macheso, Yahweh, where is that getting from? So this is something that's baffling. And I wonder what HaGadol say. So it's very interesting. Now we are told by Dr. Thiel that the Makalanga had by 1500 developed their religious system. Here we are saying by 1500 the Makalanga people had already developed their religious system in their industries, and they were already using the book that they call the Halakha or the Torah of Truth. 1500. The Makalanga people were using that book, the Torah of Truth. So, and the writer says the Makalanga were monotheistic. That is to say, they believed in a supreme being called Muali or Mali or Yahweh, between whom and them, the ancestors, worshipped him for time immemorial. And they called, their priest was called Mozimo. Mozimo, today called Moses, because of etymology, name changes. So they called their priest in Great Zimbabwe, in the caves. They called their priest Mozimo. 1500. Yeah, 1500, around that time. They called their priest Mozimo, Moses, Where would they have gotten that name from? Moses or Moshe, to whom they sacrifice, or that Moses acted as their intercessor. Now, because of etymology, people are a bit confused, because people are lazy to read. People are lazy to discover for themselves. They want some people to tell them, so they can't dip into the ocean of knowledge to dig out information. So, Mozimo was Moses. So they laid food out for their dead. They have had a day of rest called in Hebrew Nisi. Do you see the similarity? Nisi or Chisi. In Zimbabwe, we have a day called Chisi. In Hebrew, in Israel, they have a day called the Sabbath, Chisi. It's in Nisi. Chisi, Nisi in Hebrew, Chisi, Nishona. We are the Jewish people. Through Judah. Through this evidence. Through Judah. So that's what he wrote to the king. And he said the Bakalanga believe in a god called Muali or Mwali, who lodges in Patenga. So these people, the Rosh people, were said to worship God who lodges, whose residence was in Patenga. Patenga, what's Patenga? Denga. Patenga, Denga. In heaven. That's what they said. You see? So, and he said, but according to research, I'm referring to this Okawako, the researcher, said, according to research, the Wakalanga people said that God would visit them once a year to see his people face to face. It's a belief system that our ancestors in antiquity had. So people must not come and say, I agree. But at the same time, I must not disparage the fact that we knew God. We have a special way of worshiping God, which is very unique, because we are Jews. Although some of us, when Sennacherib came in 785 BCE and besieged Jerusalem, so on Tuesday, 21st of May, 1872, Karl Marx gave a detailed description of the rituals that was happening at Great Zimbabwe when people were worshipping or honoring their Mariwamu. So he said, after 2-3 years, people would come there, sing songs referring to Mali. So we knew God. We knew about this God. So no one must say, so the researcher then said, at the appropriate time, the high priest called Moses, we're talking about 1500, Moses, would appear before his people with 2 helpers, one to the right and one to the left, and 2 virgin girls. And they would greet people, and people would clap hands, and 2 oxen and a heifer would be slaughtered. It would be slaughtered. And see, when the priest came, it's happening even today. We see some of these things. So that's the in Hebrew they call it, what were they doing? They would take after the meeting. So the priest would take a goat, 2 goats. One was called the scapegoat, and the other one was going to be sacrificed. Do you see this in the Bible? So the priest would take a goat, a he-goat that was released into the forest, and that was a scapegoat, and the other one was going to be slaughtered. This is in the Bible. This is in the Bible before Christianity. So the officiating priest enters the cave where the pot is, the pot was put, and wine was put in that pot, and he started to give wine to. It's not me. He started to give wine to his people, and that was called pillar or prayer. Pillar or prayer. Today in Shona, this is pillar, P-I-L-A. Look at the similarity of some of the words, some of the terms. Pillar. So the priest would give people wine in the cave. Mozimo, Moses, 15th century, 1500. And now we are telling us that we are Jews. We are Hebrews. Whether people like it or not, whether people like us or not, we are Hebrews. We are the Jewish people, exactly according to research. So Pila, now we're not to Pila. Now it's said in a connotative, way. This person, Pila, is different from Pila. Because Pila in Hebrew, they prayed to God. It was called Pila when the priest was giving people wine. So, but when the Balote, the Roji, and all members of the Bakalanga come to praise Zimbabwe shrine, many oxen were killed because they would kill the oxen, slaughter the oxen, and Moses, called Moshe, according to research, would now pray to God and take a scepter or a rod and point towards heaven, and the rain would fall. Rain would fall. So, and the researcher then said Mu'ali was invoked to take away sins from the people and to preserve them and give them health. So that was the process at Great Zimbabwe. Now, the last portion of this presentation, I'm going to look at the evidence. Now, let's look at the evidence of the Bokalanga is coming from Yemen, or coming from Israel. So we're looking at the evidence of a Semitic, ancestry of the Bokalanga people. Now, according to a DNA by Professor Tudor, 1996, Tudor Patif and his colleagues at the University of London, and there was a DNA that was taken about the Lemba people, for the Lemba people, and particularly surprising about the findings of that research was the discovery that members of most of the senior Lemba clan displayed what is called the Cohen model haplotype blood. Cohen in Hebrew is a high priest, so they resembled the Cohen HaGadol. They resembled the Aaronite blood, which is a distinctive feature of the Jewish priesthood from the Aaronite family. So that's what they discovered, that so many Lemba people had that Cohen model haplotype type of blood. So then what are we saying? This will just tell you guys that we are the Jews. We are the Jews. We are the Hebrews. So what can I say? Interestingly, this is a very interesting, statement I'm about to say now. Interesting, it was the Buba priest from the clan of the Lemba that tested positive for Cohen DNA. The Buba priest. We have a place called Bubi. You see the similarity? Buba, Bubi in Mashingo. So according to the Lemba, the name Buba priest. So according to the Lemba, the name Buba means Judah or Yehuda, Yawonde in Cameroon. I'm tracing. At the end of this presentation, I think I'll pick a book that I will show you what I'm trying to say about that, so that no, that's fine, that's okay. And the word, the name Buba means Judah. In Hebrew, Lawi, L-A-W-I, Lawi means Levi, is another way of saying lion, for example. So Lawi, L-A-W-I, is Levi, the Levite, is another way of saying lion. For example, Ma, Lawi, Ma, lion, Ma, Lawi. Those are just traits to see that where we come from. So according to research now, 12 tribes of the Bukalanga came from Sena. They crossed Pusela. This is the Great Trek. Where do we, where is it written? How did we come into Zimbabwe? So according to research, the 12 tribes of the Bukalanga came from Sena. They crossed Pusela and rebuilt Sena. In Sena, they died because of flies. And they came from Hunji to Chilimani. And from Chilimani, they went to Wedza. The other tribes went deep into the southern part of Zimubani, Zimbabwe. They built the walls and lived on the hill. Mali, God sent a star. So that's what's written. And now, if you try to join now with the story about the Queen of Sheba and her son Menelik, it is said that by the Hebrew books that the son of the Queen of Sheba was called Menelik. He was the son of Solomon. So he was the firstborn of Solomon. Solomon had 1,000 wives, but he had 3 children. Rehoboam, the son by the Queen of Sheba, and a lady and a girl. So he had 3 children. Solomon. 1,000. So what are we then saying? So the Ark of the Covenant, was stolen by the son of a Cohen. A son of a Cohen of the Aaronite family stole the Ark of the Covenant and helped the Melech, the son of the Queen of Sheba, and they took the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia. So now I'm joining this according to a vendor, analysis. Shlomo Amelech or Solomon led their ancestor called Baramina. So, so the Lemba are the direct descendants of Aaron, and most of which are they were the attendants of King Solomon, who Solomon later traveled into Sophia, into Zimbabwe, in search of gold. So this is a research. So lastly, I can say that's how we came from Yemen. That's how we came from Ethiopia. That's how we came from Israel. And it is told again that the Queen of Sheba, the son of Queen of Sheba called Menelik, sent 2 guys to come to Zimbabwe to investigate about gold the first time. The first one called Caribal, now the present-day Kariba. And the other one was Carol, Caroll, Carol, present-day Karoi. These are facts. So we have a close link with Israel. We have a close link with the God of Israel. We are related. They are our brothers. We came from there. This is a research. It's not attached to me. So to just hint and finally put this into the right perspective, the tribe of Dani tradition relates that the Beta Israel are descendants of Eldad Hadani, a Danite Jewish man of dark skin who suddenly turned up in Egypt in the 9th century and created a great stir in the Egyptian Jewish community. So these people, the Bukalanga people, carried a Hebrew book, like I've said, which was called the Halacha, the book of law, which was the Torah. And they were able to cite ancient authorities. And people learned from this book orally. So, and if they were asked the question, they would say the Jewish people of their ancestors told them to read the laws from this book. So that's the story about us and the Jewish people and how we traveled from Israel to Yemen after Sennacherib, and from there went to Sofala, Ophir, after the dam He had the best. So Buba was leading. We have people like Buba, the priest, and the other, junior priests were Sabi, Sabi from Ethiopia, Sabi. That's why we have Sabi in Chipingo. Sabi was another priest who led these people into Zimbabwe. And Buba, another priest who led people far down around Ngundu and Lundi. So that's what I can only say. So and to if you want to do a further research, some Jewish legal authorities have also asserted that the Beta Israel are the descendants of the tribe of Dani, and they are the lost tribes of the Jewish people, and all those tribes are scattered around the world. And we have, for example, one tribe of the Kashmir is called Asheria, which is Asher, the tribe of Dani. We have the tribe of Gad, it's Gad now in our language, Shona. We have the tribe of Lavi, which is Levi. We have the tribe of Shu, is the Hebrew name for King Solomon, it's Shu in Hebrew. Musa is Moses. Suleimani is Solomon. Those are, I'm just mentioning names. And you also have the tribe of Israel and the tribe of Abri, which is the tribe of Hebrew. Abri is Hebrew. And the tribe of Kahana, which is Kohen. Kahana, which means Kohen in Hebrew. So that's what I prepared in this presentation, just to give facts about the Rose people, the Bukalanga people. Do we agree that the white people brought God to us? No, we knew God before. That's why you see the way Africans worship is different from all other people across the international deadline. So thank you so much for coming to this presentation. So this is what I had. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself. Amen, amen, and amen.